Welcome to Essence Steelworks to another CoH2 replay cast. This time we're gonna have a nice freebie free on this wonderful map. It's gonna be featuring Down PT, who sent in the replay. OKW Mikey Le has his ally, and Frühlingsrolle also his ally. On the enemy team, we're gonna have Kolyan 3777, Tachyon. Welcome. And sorry for that. Tachyon over here playing as British, and Korean person M1 playing as the Americans. So, how about this map? This map is a pretty interesting free map due to the fact that, as we can see, it's got a great many buildings in strategic locations and also open areas in other very important locations such as this fuel point. And also the center VP is very open. So it ends up being a very casualty heavy map in the late game if you're not careful. Of course, there are a lot of choke points as roads over here and over here. Also, a few nice choke points here, and as well, if we can get over here and over here. So you have to be very, of course, here as well. You have to be very careful to not get caught up in some kind of minefield or machine gun or AT gun in these areas. And you have to always be very careful and recon your way to victory. And also artillery can be very useful on the map. So we start first engagement already. Infantry section from Tachyon is already taking up the strategic building over here by the fuel point. Frühlingsrolle will be in a bit of a, tough spot. By the way, there's no music. What the fuck? Oh, there is music. Okay, it's just not playing. Whatever. So we have a Kübelwagen from Mikey Le, and we also have another Kübelwagen from Frühlingsrolle. So we have pretty decently mobile force for the Germans, but I'm not really sure that two Kübelwagens were too necessary. That's a bit of a miscommunication error between the two. Now, Volksfreundier's smartly taking up this building. There's only one window, unfortunately, they can fire out of, but it's still a fairly useful defensive spot. What I would really rather see is, of course, the music now starts and it's too loud. Sorry for that. Okay, fine. What I would really like to see is something like this, a nice flank from the Stern Pioneers, along with bringing up maybe a Kübelwagen. Mikey Le going for Fortifications Doctrine will be very well prepared later on to hold down the territory with MG34s, which are excellent in these buildings. You'll have to, of course, be very wary of mortar emplacements, though. We'll see what the British decide to do in terms of that. Now, nice, pretty safe positioning for the Kübelwagen, and it's going to be repaired under fire by the Stern Pioneers. It's not the best idea possible. We also have another Brain Carrier coming in from Tachyon. The Brain Carrier is going to be able to easily push back the Stern Piles and the Kübelwagen. Brain Carrier, of course, does win in a run against the Kübelwagen. Now, on the left side of the map, we have Down PT pushing up with his infantry, and he's going to be able to take over the fuel point on the left side of the map, which is good, because the allies don't control the point on the right side, and that will pretty much starve them out of the resources that they desperately need to get out some early game vehicles. You will probably see some kind of early game vehicles out of the American player over here on 1. So far he hasn't upgraded anything in terms of tech. He's going for grenades. Had he not gone for grenades, he would have had the fuel for the lieutenant tech, which is what I would have gone for if I was in his situation. But we'll see if we can continue putting pressure on with the early game grenades, maybe doing some nice things. Now we have two snipers out of Kolyan. Kolyan Soviet player going for partisan tactics and going for tier 1. I'm not really too much of a fan of tier 1, Soviet tier 1. If you've seen my other casts, you know why. Especially because if the Germans do decide to go for an early vehicle, and if there's 3 OKW players, a Lux is almost certainly going to come out in the first 10 minutes of the game, even earlier. You definitely want to have some kind of early game anti-tank capabilities. Now, the partisan tactics does provide you with a bit of that with the partisan tank hunters. If you can get the anti-tank grenades, then you will be able to use them to good effect, especially because of their ability to spawn in any building in the map. Unfortunately, he's going to lose one engineer squad. One of his snipers also almost going down, so that is very bad for Kolyan. He really needs to get the micro game going. He's also spawned some partisans in the warehouse over here, but he's going to have a bit of trouble because of these Volksfreundiers being microed and also just running away from the partisans' close range Papa shots and machine guns. Now, the right side of the map is being completely taken over by the Allies, as is kind of to be expected considering how many troops they put on this side, and kind of how little they left to the left side of the map. Now we have a second partisan squad spawning out of the building. It's going to attempt to charge into close range, but there's 3 Volksgrenadier squads, so they will be able to easily gun down the partisans and force them to retreat. The partisans have no munitions to throw RGB grenade against the blob of Volksgrenadiers, so they will be forced to retreat and they will be wiped. As 210 manpower for Kolian that he loses, definitely needs to get his unit preservation back on track. He's got no units, and he definitely needs to get out a force and vet it up before the Germans have just too much of an overwhelming advantage. Now on the right side of the map, the Allies are making their own little doom stack of a force, with three rifleman squads and the Brink Carrier pushing up. I wonder if the sappers will be pushing up to repair the Brink Carrier soon enough. Looks like the American player has lost his rear echelon, which is a bit of a shame, but he's got an ambulance back at base. Ambulance back at base will be, of course, useful also to the British player, just to avoid having him keep his infantry around the medic section all the time. Can just send it to the ambulance. Ambulance, I myself would position it about here instead of just back at base to have a more forward retreat point to reinforce your infantry. Now we have a shoe mine placed by Mikela over here in the center, actually 2 shoe mines, so this is actually really good out of him. Definitely needs to use those munitions. He's only got 1 Volksgrenadier squad, which explains all the mines, because he only needs pretty much 1 Panzerschreck, considering he's only got 1 Volksgrenadier squad. Now we also have a Raketenwerfer from him. Excellent decision out of him to counter the fighting position and also to prevent his lack of Panzerschrecks from hurting his capabilities, just to compensate for that extra weakness of this build. So that is really good. Now the Raketenwerfer is in range of the fighting position and it will easily be able to destroy it. We've also got a German MG34 approaching the sort of grain silo building, and now we also have a flame Brink Carrier, which is going to be very good against the building, but not exactly too great against Panzerschrecks out in the open. Panzerschrecks out in the open are going to be easily able to force it away, but they walk back through the fire, which means that they take a lot of damage. Unfortunately for the Germans, that is not the only flamethrower that the British have access to them. They've also got a sapper squad with a flamethrower from the Mobile Assault Regiment. Unfortunately for the British, though, the MG34 is very well microed and manages to suppress both of the infantry squads of the British player before they can get into close range against this machine gun and kind of burn it out of the grain silo. Thankfully for the Germans, they are able to keep this position and just keep their VP lead, and also wipe out one of the Vet 2 infantry sections from Tachyon. So that is very bad for him, because he definitely needs those infantry squads to be as vetted up as possible once he has enough munitions to upgrade them with weapons to just exponentially increase their capabilities. Now we have bazookas being upgraded by a Korean person, M1. He's also gone for lieutenant here, so that explains the bazookas. And the 4 rifleman squads, that is a very interesting build. Now we'll see if he decides to go for any kind of early game tanks, but I doubt it, since he went for tactical support company. Confusing myself with the British. I would definitely, if I was in his shoes, I would go for a captain tier next and try to get out a Stuart, and then bridge the gap to the Sherman Calliope later on in the game. But we'll see if he decides to do that or any other kind of teching this choices. Now, on the left side of the map, I've been neglecting it. Excellent choice from down PC to get out the Lux. The Lux is definitely the best decision for him. The Soviet player over here, Kolian, has found a partisan with Panzerschreck, and it does a little bit of damage to the Lux, but doesn't look like he's got AT grenades upgraded. Nope, he doesn't even have the resources for it, which means that it looks pretty much invincible and can just safely run around the map and harass Soviet squads. So that is really good for him. He will be able to use this Lux very, very effectively, if he uses it, of course, very offensively. Which may not be the best idea, considering he doesn't exactly know that the enemy doesn't have AT grenades. But we will see. Now, on the right side of the map, the rifleman / lieutenant blob is pretty much relentless, and it's pushing against the German positions. Of course, we do have a battle group headquarters from Mikela, and he's also got a Schwere Panzer headquarters already out in the field. Now, he went for fortifications option, which means he doesn't really have any freebie late game vehicle. like the Sturm Tiger or the Ag Tiger. So of course we will see if he decides to go for a King, which I highly doubt, or perhaps going for some Panthers or a Panther 4, or even an early Panther 4 would be really good for him, because he would be able to get it out in about 5 minutes or so, considering the fuel income and the fuel he's got. So that would be really good against the poorly prepared allies, because right now they don't really have much AT. They do have a few handheld AT weapons like the Spiat and a few bazookas and the Panzerschreck partisans, but that will not be enough to stop a Panzer IV if one gets out early enough. Now, we do have a mortar being built by Tachyon, which is definitely the correct choice. At this point, he definitely needs to continue putting the pressure on the Germans on the right side of the map, and if they do decide to hunker down, he needs to have something to deal with the German MGs in the houses, and possibly later on the light artillery, such as the support gun that is already peppering the Allied positions on this house. Now, one big issue for the Allies is the fact that the left side of the map is losing badly, which means that the resources, the all too important resources of the left side of the map, are completely under the control of the Axis, giving them a resource advantage and also a VP advantage, as they have had 2 VPs against 1 for a lot of the game, and now they actually have a triple cap. So the Allies definitely need to get out some kind of unit that can shock the enemy and in general push them back far enough so that he can secure one of the victory points, or possibly even 2 of the victory points, quick enough. Now we have a lot of mines over here in the center. A few are actually placed a little bit too close to each other, such as these 2. I would place this one more like about here, or perhaps even placed one over here, which is an excellent choke point for a mine placement. Other than that, the mine placement is actually an excellent play from Mikila, recognizing that he doesn't really have enough uses for his munitions other than that. Just decides to get out the mines. Unfortunately for him, he loses his machine gun to the flamer engineers of Tachyon. Tachyon using them fairly correctly. Unfortunately, there's also a bunker over here placed by Mikula, which is going to be able to protect the area from British advances, at least if they don't decide to outflank from this side of the map with the road. Now, one good thing about M1 is that he's already got M1919 like machine guns from his tactical support company. Now, the tactical support company, of course, giving you the light machine guns to have a lot more firepower against infantry is really useful for the Americans, and also the fact that later on he will have access to the Sherman Calliope means that the anti-infantry firepower of the Allies on the right side will be very, very high. And so the German troops will need to be very careful, especially these Sturm Pioneers, which in the early game are really good, but later on they will pretty much suffer trying to close the distance against the better pretty much equipped for long range Allied infantry. On the left side, Down PT has pushed way up to the base, and he's already got a Stuka out. Unfortunately, no, that's not him. Yeah, the Stuka is on the right side of the map from Frühlingsrolle, and he's managed to destroy the ambulance, actually, abandoning it. So that was a really good Stuka barrage. I believe he tried to catch out one of the retreating Allied units, perhaps, or perhaps even the whole blob retreating to the Fort Assembly / ambulance area, but he wasn't that lucky. He was only able to deal damage to the structures and the ambulance. Now, on the right side of the map, the Germans are starting to lose to the, of course, very dangerous weapon upgraded Allied troops, which means that they need to get out Obersoldaten as quickly as possible. Now, Mikula has actually gone for a mechanized regiment headquarters as well, which means that he will probably go for a King Tiger later on, which could be definitely a good idea. Of course, Frühlingsrolle has also gone for the sort of triple HQ setup, so we will see whether or not any of them decide to go for some spicy, weird builds, but I doubt it. Because I think that both will go for a King Tiger, or perhaps even one would go for, I don't know, maybe even just another Stuka. I wouldn't agree with it, but I've seen people do it. Now, on the left side of the map, the reason I was kind of confused is because I didn't see the looks in the top left corner counter for the units, because of course I was selecting Frühlingsrolle instead of Down PT. Down PT still has its looks, and it's up to 3 kills, but it's Ved 1.5, which means that it's been doing fairly good in general. It may not have a lot of kills. Wow, that Shrek snipe killing 3 engineers in one hit. That was quite brutal. Now, Piats are very dangerous against infantry, but Panzerschrecks usually aren't. So that is a bit of a surprise to see that nice thing going. Now, the setup that the British player looks to be going for with his Royal Engineers is Flamethrower plus Piat, which is very dangerous because you either see one or the other in the little unit sort of counter, little information screen that tells you which weapon it has, but we'll see if he can continue using those to great effect even in the late game when the sort of close range units start to fall off in favor of more long range units. He will need to make sure that he's got enough infantry sections with Brens to keep pretty much his infantry competitive. Now, on the left side of the map, Kolyan is still having a lot of trouble and basically not having any map control. This is because he's got Tier 1. Tier 1 means that you have no ability to hold on to whatever territory you get, and also you have very little pushing power as well if you cannot get out an AT gunner enough to counter any kind of German vehicles. Now, the partisans do help out a bit with both the pushing power and the holding territories thanks to their mines and their ability to spawn out of buildings. Unfortunately, what they also do is they drain your manpower income very greatly, and as you can see, Kolyan has 326 fuel, which means that he cannot do what his allies are doing, which is get out their first armored vehicles of the game, which is crucial for the allies to get them out as soon as possible. As you can see, the American player is going for a Sherman. He didn't go for a captain, he went for a 5th rifleman squad, which I disagree with. But then he went for a major and a Sherman, which is possibly a pretty good idea. If he can use it correctly, he will be able to inflict a lot of casualties on the Germans on the right side. Sherman, of course, being very dangerous against infantry. Now, the Cromwell is also very dangerous against infantry, also because of its excellent speed, which is what allows it to run away from danger as soon as possible. Now, if it's microed correctly, it will be able to pretty much bed up and be a force to be reckoned with throughout the game. We'll see if Tachyon can use it correctly. Unfortunately for Tachyon, he still hasn't really gotten the infantry superiority that he would like. He still has to rely on his ally to pretty much deal with the Germans. Of course, on the right side of the map, the sort of 2v2 struggle that's been going on hasn't exactly been in the favor of the Axis, but at the same time, it hasn't really been in favor of the Allies. And this is a very big problem because on the left side, down PT has been pretty much massacring Kolyan, which means that on the right side of the map, they need to be massacring the Allies, but unfortunately, it's not the case for them. Now, we have interesting, like, one of the bunkers got destroyed by, looks like, maybe bazookas or artillery, and also we have a land mattress on the field from the Mobile Assault Regiment, which got 7 kills in its first barrage, attacking a bunker and a flak emplacement, interestingly enough. We have the American infantry horde attempting to push up, wiping out, looks like, one Volksgrenadier squad of Panzertruck. That was Michaela's one Volksgrenadier squad, but it's being pretty much caught by the Schur Panzer headquarters and the flak emplacement of the OKW. So one big win for the Germans if they can keep this position against this assault of the Allies. They've got pretty much a huge VP advantage. Only now the Allies are recapturing the right side VP, which means that they have pretty much allowed themselves to fall to 180 VPs, which in terms of triple cap is pretty much like 3 minutes of time. Now, we do have a bit of a counterattack by Frühlingsorle, but he will be pretty much caught by the huge American horde, along with the Sherman supporting. Sherman is not even using armor-piercing round, rather HE rounds, which is a bit of a shame, because it would have been definitely able to wipe out a few more infantry squads of the Germans. Now, we do have another Schur Panzer Corps by Frühlingsorle, and he's going for 2 Oberseeland squads, which I don't think that's really good. Actually, that huge Shrek snipe, taking out 5 models in one hit from the Volksgrenadiers, might just turn the tide of this engagement. We also have a huge artillery barrage, it looks like, from down PT, going for the 105mm howitzer bombardment from the scavenge doctrine that he selected. Definitely a good howitzer barrage when you have a lot of munitions float, because in case you don't know, the more munitions you have, the more shells fall down with this ability, so it is a very dangerous ability, especially also because of the fact that you can drop it into the base of an enemy player. In case you don't know, it's a bit of a bug in my opinion, because usually you aren't supposed to be able to drop artillery strikes and airstrikes into the base of someone, but you can do it with this ability, so it's very good in that sense, because people don't expect it now. On the right side of the map, some Jaegers and some Sturm Pioneers are attempting to fight these Partisans, and unfortunately it's not going too well for them. Partisans, of course, being very cost-effective, especially at this kind of a close range against the Jaegers. Jaegers are definitely more of a long-range unit. Now we have a Panzer IV out of Don PT. Interesting. I usually don't really see Panzer IVs being built by players who go for looks, but I do see the appeal of the Panzer IV for him, especially because of the fact that Kolyan still hasn't gone for a tier 2. He's gone for a tier 3 at this point, but he definitely needs a tier 4 at this point to use his fuel correctly and without wasting too much resources. Now, we have another nice land mattress bombardment, gonna deal a lot of damage, but the infantry assault that follows it up will be completely stopped by the Schwer Panzer Headquarters, MG, and actually Pack 43 that we have on the field from Mikela. Pack 43, of course, being very, very scary for Allied vehicles, especially because in such a well-defended position as Mikela has in this area, it will be fairly hard for the Allies to actually make the kind of right push happen at the right time. They will need to pretty much destroy at least one of the defenses of the Germans, maybe the Pack 43, and then push up the armor, or maybe the bunker and push up his infantry, and then make a nice flanking maneuver from perhaps this area of the map, in this sort of a clearing that's kind of blasted by artillery. If they can make a nice pincer maneuver over here and flank the Pack 43 and then bring in their armor from the center, they will be in trouble because of the mines, but if they bring minesweepers along, then that can be a pretty successful push against the center. Other than that, I don't really see how the center position is going to fall. Maybe some artillery spam can deal with it, but that will require a long preparation, and the Allies don't exactly have a lot of time. They've got control of one VP at this point, which is the right side of the map, but they still pretty much lack all the VPs of the universe, pretty much, so they need to quickly devise a solution, even though it's not a... Ooh, Obersoldaten squad going down, so another big loss for Frühlingsröhle. He's definitely in trouble, and he needs to pretty much continue rebuilding his force all the time because he's losing a lot of infantry squads. Unit preservation is definitely one big major downfall of him and his play in general. Now, Mikela also has had a few issues with unit preservation. The only one in the German side that hasn't really had any issues so far is T, who has a pretty well equipped force. Now, he went for an Ostwind, which is definitely a mistake in my opinion. He should have gone for a Panther. A Panther would have been 100 fuel more and 210? Yeah, 210 manpower more. Pretty much that investment of resources would have been definitely worth it, especially because the Allies on the right side have a pretty hefty amount of armor, and they're using it fairly well to push against the sort of less protected headquarters. Instead of the one that's protected by the Pack 43, they've decided to flank around and hit the HQ of Frühlingsröhle. Frühlingsröhle responds with a nice Raketenwerfer pin in pretty good spot, taking out the Sherman fairly easily because the Sherman wasn't really being microed correctly. Now we also have a nice attack over here with a Raketenwerfer, keeps saying Pack, a Raketenwerfer and a truck squad destroying the Jackson from M1. So M1 definitely losing most of his fighting power on the right side of the map, losing one Jackson, one Sherman, and one Rifleman squad during the course of that engagement, which is a bit of a shame because he was definitely the stronger of the Allied players so far. Now, Tachyon has definitely got a lot of resources that he needs to spend. I would advise if I was him to go for a Firefly because of the loss of the Jackson. They definitely need some kind of AT to keep at bay any kind of late game German armor that might be showing up anytime soon to the battle. Remember that the Germans have had the resource advantage completely on the left side of the map, and the right side of the map was kind of contested throughout this entire game, so the Germans definitely have the resource lead overall. Now, in terms of caches, no one has really gone for any caches. Of course, the Germans can't go for any caches because they're all OKW. So one big advantage of the Allies is the fact that they can get caches on their points, and they haven't done so, which is a bit of a big problem for them. Now, the Stuka, still doing its thing. I don't know where it is. Pretty much hasn't done anything throughout this entire game, which is a bit of a shame considering if used correctly, it could have definitely thinned out the infantry blobs of Tachyon and M1, but unfortunately that wasn't the case. Now, Tachyon has a lot of manpower, which I regret to say it, but he should get some infiltration commandos. As much as I hate this unit, he should definitely get at least one of them to place down demo charges on the right side of the map, because he's got a lot of munitions, and if he won't go for a Sherman Firefly, which it doesn't look like he's going for it, he could be going for a Comet. He hasn't really upgraded the tier 3. No, he's actually gone for Hammer Tactics, so yes, he should definitely get out a unit of infiltration commandos and use some of that munitions to plant down demo charges on the right side of the map with that infantry squad. Now, one problem that he's got is, of course, the fact that he cannot hold that much territory, but he does have one advantage, which is the land mattresses. The first one has 22 kills, and the second one is making its first barrage against the Pack 43. If the Allies can get a lot of artillery and use it correctly, they can definitely turn the tide of the game on the right side of the map and also in the center. One big problem that they have in the center is also the fact that there's a lot of mines, so they should definitely upgrade their engineers with minesweepers and also get out a new rear echelon squad for one. On the left side of the map, pretty much Down PT has completely secured the left side. I haven't really seen any any successful attempt by Koldian to retake the area. Now we do have a nice little artillery strike being called into the Schwer Panzer headquarters by I don't know who, and the Cromwell goes down to the... What? What killed that Cromwell? I'm guessing the Schwer Panzer headquarters killed the Cromwell. Now we have... Yeah, what is it that's firing on? Is it the British base? It's the British base. That's a bit of a shame. British base will not be able to destroy that HQ, I don't think so. Now, Panzer IV on the right side, it's got 3 kills, along with the Austrian, it's only got 1 kill, but they've been able to pretty much keep the Soviet infantry at bay and keep them pretty much map control-less, which is a bit of a mouthful, but yeah, pretty much no map control for the Soviets on the left side of the map. I think a bit of a mistakenly mass retreat was ordered by Down PT, which will allow the British or the Soviets to push up with a lot of Panzerschrecks and destroy the Lukes, which is a bit of a shame because that Lukes had been alive for a very long time now. Jackson is back on the field for the Americans. It's trying to destroy the FAC-43, but the FAC-43 definitely is very dangerous to that tank. He needs to run away as soon as possible and pretty much wait for the infantry to destroy the FAC-43 as it has happened with the Fiats. Now, zeroing artillery will be called in by Mikula. Zeroing artillery definitely very scary artillery ability against buildings and defensive emplacements, but against a mobile attacking force is not exactly the most dangerous thing, because of course you need to keep line of sight on the area, and if you're pretty much being pushed back, you will not be able to keep line of sight in the area, and you will not be able to deal a lot of damage with the zeroing artillery. But we do have a huge Stuka barrage taking out some like 20 allied infantry. Yes, pretty much 19 kills in one barrage, dealing a huge amount of damage and clearing the way for the King Tiger for all the Piats that were here. They were all destroyed, and you don't see the minimap because all your units are dead, so you shouldn't have a minimap because you're very much not deserving of one. Now, that was a complete turnaround and a half. The Germans look to be pretty much on the verge of being pushed back to their structures, or were already fighting on their structures, and the Bazooka Blob also takes a huge hit from the King Tiger, and will have to pretty much rely on the Comet Tank now to be the main striking force of the Allies on the right side, which is of course not enough because it's only one tank. The Stuka definitely needs to be retreated out of the land mattress fire though as soon as possible. On the left side of the map, the Soviet player went for a Katyusha, barraged only the 1 kill, which is perhaps the reason why there was a mass retreat out of Down PT. Definitely doesn't need to fear the Soviet infantry, so I'm guessing it was the Katyusha. Now, of course, the first shock barrage of the Katyusha only getting 1 kill is a big problem for the Soviets because with artillery units, of course, the first barrage is going to be the most devastating because the enemy is not seeing it coming. Now, the huge partisan tank blob is, of course, very dangerous for the German vehicles, but it's not very dangerous for the German infantry, which means that Down PT can get away with pretty much getting a lot of Panzerschreck equipped Panzer Grenadiers, rather Volksgrenadiers, supported by pretty much only Jaegers and some very thin Sturm Pioneers, which means that he will be able to pretty much have a very useful anti-tank force to support his allies later in the game with the Volksgrenadiers. Now, one thing that Down PT is not doing correctly, of the many things that he is doing correctly, there is definitely one he's not doing right, which is that he's not helping out his allies. He needs to be more proactive on the right side of the map, bringing up his troops, and especially his vehicles, because of the huge amount of anti-tank that the Soviet player has. He needs to bring his vehicles to the right side of the map to help out against the American Blob, which I will henceforth call the Freedom Blob, and also the Comet Tank, which is a very, very scary unit. Unfortunately, he doesn't really have the capabilities to fight the Comet with only a Panzer IV, but he can definitely help out his allies with a bit of a mobile tank, because right now the Germans on the right side have very immobile forces. Mikula has lost all of his sort of defensive emplacements, so his little Maginot line over here, rather Siegfried line, has pretty much collapsed. And now he's definitely under strength. He's only got a Stuka, which is a very, very big problem, because, well, he doesn't have a front line at all, so he will need to pretty much be pinpoint with his Stukas and force retreat the allied infantry, and then hope that his ally can pretty much hold the fort while his own units are recovering. Now, the Vet 2 Stuka that had all those kills went down to a Land Meshes barrage, which is not exactly the best thing. Land Meshes will be almost wiped out by another Stuka barrage, and the Stuka also does a huge amount of damage to the British forces again. Why will this British player not learn to spread out his infantry? He should know at this point that there's a Stuka on the enemy side, perhaps even two. Now, the mines have slowed down the American advance a little bit, but the Jackson-supported advance, pretty much the Freedom steamroller will never stop pretty much, and now the King Tiger is being directly targeted and has to run away. This is the main problem with these big heavy tanks, is that you need to support them with a lot of infantry squads, or else they will just be swamped by infantry supported by tank destroyers. Of course, the sort of Freedom steamroller over here will be having to retreat fairly soon because of the German artillery, like the support guns, and also the Stuka. Now, one big problem is also the fact that, yes, I've said that the Allies, rather the Axis over here, Dom PT, hasn't really helped out his own friends on the right side of the map. So, pretty much that is, of course, true for the Axis players as well. And the reasoning for this is because of the fact that you definitely, and by he I mean especially Tachyon with the Comet, but also M1 with the Freedom Blob, need to make a sort of flanking maneuver over here through this sort of underbelly area, if I can bring up the tag map, over here through this sort of lightly defended area into the OKW structures over here. If a sort of advanced allied force that's also fast and can retreat fairly quickly through here were just to make an attack over here, it could deal a lot of damage before it was discovered. Now, you do have a huge blob engagement in the center. Again, the British player blobbing and not really making any sort of effort to be less vulnerable to King Tiger shots and German artillery fire. Now, it's of course a big mistake. One thing is the fact that the King Tiger is right now very unsupported, and so the Comet that is making its own move against it is also will be able to be a very big threat. Now, the Stuka has missed the Allied Infantry Blob, so some anti-tank rifle grenades will be very dangerous for the King Tiger. Now, Frühlingsrolle will be replaced by the AI, and a huge Stuka barrage from the second Stuka by Michaela will deal a huge amount of damage to the Allied troops. Now, a Panther from Dom PT will be coming in to assist. He's also got a Nostwind that's ran for its life from the sort of bazooka anti-tank blob, which is going to also gang rape this one Jaeger Light Infantry squad. Unfortunately for the Allies, on the right side, they've been just taking huge casualties. They've got a lot of manpower available to them, pretty much 700 for both. M1 just used it for another Jackson, but he's still going to have enough manpower to reinforce his infantry. But if they keep this up, he'll start to run out of troops, pretty much. Now, one big problem, of course, that now the AI King Tiger is facing is the fact that the Comet is a very nimble vehicle and can pretty much try to circle strafe the cannon on the King Tiger. But a wonderful, I guess, hiding by the AI, along with good support, timely support from Dom PT, will be able to defeat the Comet tank, which is a bit of a shame, because right now, Tachyon has enough resources for another Comet tank. So if he had waited to make his push until he had a second Comet, he would have definitely been much more successful, because, of course, medium armor, the more massed it is, the better it is. And that is pretty much true for all vehicles, but especially for medium armor, because they don't really hinder each other when they're moving around. And you want them to be a sort of mobile. Wow, that poor Royal Engineer got one-shotted by the Syrian artillery. So again, Allied infantry starting to suffer a lot from the artillery because of the fact that there's just way too much blobbing going on from the Germans. Now, it looks like the AI went for a Panzer IV, which is oddly enough the best decision that they could have had right now. Another Stuka barrage going to deal a huge amount of damage, almost, to the huge blob of the Allies. Now, the Austin from Dom PT is also in the action, but it's being hit by the Jackson, which means that it should definitely run away as soon as possible. Now, second Stuka barrage again! Wow, why don't these Allied players learn at this point to just deal with these artillery units? They need to spread out their units. They've pretty much lost all their infantry at this point. Like, I'm just baffled. Like, this blobbing is insane. 46 kills already by these two Stukas, and they've been on the field for like, what, 5 minutes? I have to say, very well used by the Axis players. It is not that easy to aim the Stuka. It used to be much easier, but now the Stuka is fairly slow at actually firing. So it is not the easiest artillery to aim correctly on even a moving big target. But still, the Allies definitely need to not present these big moving targets. Even if they are moving, they are still big, and they're still targets. So you don't want them to be all blobbed up. Now, Frühlingsrolle's Panzer IV is definitely in trouble and will die because of his King Tiger being a derp. King Tiger with prioritized vehicles on, but really being derpy, so it's gonna probably go down. We do also have a looks like artillery barrage over here. Looks like a 105mm artillery strike from down PT, which will definitely destroy this Jackson, and will also do a lot of damage probably to this sort of fortified location of the Allies. On the left side, it looks like his own infantry now augmented by an Obersoldaten squad, which is definitely the correct choice against the sort of blob of partisans. Will pretty much be able to stop the Allied push in its tracks. Unfortunately, one of the Volksgrenadier squads that was vet-free going down, another Volksgrenadier squad had gone down earlier, so that is definitely a big mistake. One thing that you should definitely use is his own infiltration grenades ability from his Volksgrenadiers against the blob of partisans. Now he's also gone for a second Ostwind, very interesting. That's definitely going to be good against the airplanes that the Allies have. It looks like one already going to be shot down fairly easily. Over here, this P-47. Is that a recon? Yeah, that looks like a recon from the Tactical Support Regiment. So, we'll be good against the airplanes, and we'll be good against a huge blob of partisans. But I don't think it is necessarily the best decision out of Dampeti. I would have definitely gone for a bigger vehicle, or perhaps just a spam of Panzer IVs, which are more versatile against vehicles. And they're still pretty damn good against infantry, so you'd want a little bit of a more versatile army instead of a very anti-infantry focused army as he does have now. The Allies are pushing in the center. We do have some Stuka barrage. Stuka barrage is being called down on the land mattresses. Very lucky to actually survive with those two. Now, a triple cap is available for the Germans, or rather, in effect for the Germans, and the Allies have only 17 VPs. This one Comet over here from Tachyon is being hit by a Puma from the AI, and also Dampeti's Panther. Dampeti's second Austin is also on the field on the right side, pecking away at these Loyal Engineers, pretty much preventing them from capping safely enough. Unfortunately for the Axis, there's also a much more dangerous sort of infantry force from the British over here, ready to take up the mantle of that squad and take over the capturing of the point. Also the Jackson over here, Vet 2, and also very damaged. We're going to be able to easily destroy this Ostwind along with a lot of Piat fire. We've also got the Panther over here, which is of course going to be very dangerous for this very low HP Jackson. On the left side of the map, we have a pretty big Soviet push. One of the snipers, actually the only sniper that's still alive, I believe, going almost down from the Jaeger fire and the Obersoldaten, but very lucky to escape. Now, one big problem is the fact that they will not be able to hold pretty much any of their territory, because right now, if Down PT can manage to repair his vehicles, look here, one of his Ostwinds, yeah, right, the Ostwind went down. If the Axis can manage to repair their vehicles and make a concerted push into the center, they will be able to pretty much easily take and hold the territory if they can also plant down some mines over here with their pretty huge munitions income and munitions float. Now we have a Pack 43 actually by Down PT, which has rather from Mikey who hasn't really made use of it because it's way too much in the back. Of course, this positioned over here because he fears the land mattress barrages would easily be able to destroy his Pack 43 was it positioned like over here. Which is definitely a very, very valid concern. Now, the vet-free Stuka is also making another run at success, but he hasn't really been able to hit anything so far. Now, the other Stuka is also ready to fire. It's going to be hitting this area, it looks like. I'm not really sure. Perhaps actually over here. If he does hit over here, then he's a genius, but it looks like it was over here. Actually destroying one of the land mattresses, that was an excellent barrage, again. Now, triple cap is up for the Allies, but the Allies will not be able to hold the triple cap for very long because on the left side of the map, Down PT is definitely stronger than Kolyan. Kolyan going for a second Katyusha, definitely a mistake. He should have gone for a swarm of T-34-76s or some Su-85s to counter the German armor and have a little bit more of a varied infantry force to support it. Because right now he's relying on his Katyushas to be anti-infantry and his infantry to be anti-tank. but it is not exactly the most versatile combination. Now, on the right side of the map, Frulingurole's AI is... What? Frulingurole's AI is having a lot of trouble supporting DownPT's Panther. DownPT's Panther is in a lot of trouble. AP rounds are equipped, or rather HVAP rounds are equipped on Jackson. Jackson is also supported by, what? Another Jackson, and that was really good. Taking out the Panther, which was Vet 2. Of course, at Vet 2, if you don't know, the Panther does get an armor bonus. So the use of these HVAP rounds was definitely needed for that Jackson to take out the Panther with any kind of reliability. But unfortunately for the Allies, the Germans have managed to take control of the center VP, and they've also been able to pretty much hold it, actually thanks to a Koopa Wagon by the AI, so that was really nice play by the AI, I guess. Now, second land match is also going down with its vet, but it's still alive. Unfortunately for the Allies, they will never be able to recapture it because they have lost. Now, talking about mistakes and what they could have done differently to prevent this sort of horrible outcome. Now, the Allies, definitely Kolyan was the weak link in my opinion. It's an interesting tactic to spam this many partisans, but and in case you want to know how to do it correctly, just go look for a few other replays on my channels featuring partisans. There's a dude called El Tirador who sends me these kinds of replays where he spams partisans all the time. So pretty much you will be able to see a little bit more about actual partisan spam. Of course, they are much better in sort of smaller games to just go on full-on partisan. Partisan doctrine in team games is all about the spy network and the mark vehicle, and along with the global abilities of the partisans to spawn all over the map to support your own allies, along with the map hacks of the spy network and the radar intercept and the mark vehicle, which is also a very nice global ability. It's pretty much a supportive doctrine that can be used very effectively, coordinated with your own allies. So it pretty much rewards coordination, which I'm not sure if was pretty much the case in this team, considering it might have been just some random players. Of course, these two Korean people were probably friends and talking on voice chat, but I'm not really sure if Kolyan over here was their own friend. In case, actually, I should probably just watch and go into profile, spy on people. Let's see. No, Kolyan is actually a random Russian person. Okay, so yeah, essentially that was his problem. Just going for way too many partisans. If he had a balanced force of conscripts, partisans from tier 1, perhaps even penals, one squad of penals would have been good. And especially, you should have gone for a tier 2 as well as a tier 1. Even if you do go for a tier 1, you need to go for a tier 2. You just need to go for a tier 2 because of the fact that at some point the Germans are going to get out tanks, and at that point you're going to need Zis guns, and at some point you're going to be able to capture territory, and to hold that territory you're going to need Maxims. It is a very simple fact of Soviet life. So that is pretty much what he should have done, and the game would have gone much better for him and his team in general if he had done that. That said, his allies did pretty much nothing to help him out. They played essentially a double 2v2 on the right side of the map and a 1v1 on the left side of the map. So that pretty much favored the team that was able to sort of gain the upper hand in one area and sort of keep the other area contested, and that was the Axis. Especially because of the fact that the Allies definitely needed to be placing down more fuel caches. They have had the opportunity to do so. The Allies, both of the Western Allied players, had a lot of resources that were stockpiled. Even Kolyan probably at some point had a lot of manpower. They should have placed more caches. Now, specifically, the American player went for too many rifleman squads, too little caches, too little support weapons. He should have gone for a back tech to captain at some point. He should have gone for a Calliope Sherman instead of getting out 3 Jacksons. He should have gone up 2 Jacksons and then a Calliope. Calliope is excellent against German infantry and against German defenses, which would have freed up Tachyon to go for only 1 land mattress instead of 2, and then gone for a lot more Comets and perhaps even a Firefly. 1 Firefly is always good for a British player, but what is even better is even if you aren't going for a Firefly, you need to make sure that you're using your resources to their full potential. In this case, all of these just munitions that are stockpiled could have been better used on just anything. Should have upgraded more his infantry. Some of his infantry are still not completely upgraded, which is a bit of a shame considering the British do have the ability to upgrade on the field thanks to their forward assembly with the racks. So more weapons, more mines, more grenades, more airstrikes, more perhaps even just demo charges from infiltration commandos. that should have been the name of the game for Tachyon, and he didn't do that, and pretty much his whole side suffered because with no mines and Nema charges, he wasn't able to hold satisfyingly the points, and pretty much eventually they got outproduced by the Germans. Now, for the Germans, mistakes. Frühlingsurle before, what the fuck? That rolling R though. Now, before going for the crash, which is a very interesting strategy all the time, and being replaced by an AI, he went for Breakthrough Doctrine, and he didn't really use it, so that's already a pretty big red flag, pretty much. You need to be picking a Doctrine that you're going to be using. But of course, maybe he should have just, he was just waiting for the Gag Tiger and using it later, and the AI just decided to not go for the Gag Tiger, which is fine. Other than that, his main problem was unit preservation, of course, because he lost a lot of troops. Now, Michaela also lost a lot of troops, but he had these sort of defensive network and the also just good sense to rebuild his troops, which is not exactly what Frühlingsurle decided to do. Now, the main good thing that Frühlingsurle did was he was pretty much harassing the right side of the map all the time, along with supporting over here Mr. Michaela in the center, which was good, considering the fact that the allies were focusing a lot more on the fuel point area and on the center. Now, Michaela, really good play with the mines and the defensive emplacements in the earlier part of the game. Should have definitely been transitioning to more mobile forces later on, but he made up for it with the artillery. Again, artillery can be the name of the game in these big sort of team games. One other big mistake that the Germans made in general is that the fact that they left out a lot of wrecks, a lot of sort of weapons lying on the ground that could have just easily been salvaged for resources. On the left side of the map, I believe there's also a wreck of a Panzerkugel. I'm not sure if he salvaged that. No, that's actually over here. So he could have definitely salvaged this for Kenwerfer. He could have salvaged, where's the look spot? The corpse, it was over here, so it looks like it was destroyed, which is a bit of an unfortunate situation for the Germans. But other than that, doesn't look like there weren't any wrecks on this side, so it was mostly the right side of the map. There's just a lot of wrecks that he could have salvaged, for example this Cromwell or this Volcano River, for a lot of extra fuel, and that was a bit of a mistake. And of course, other than that, yes, of course the allies on the right side of the map should have tried to make a supportive push on the left side, and Down PT should have tried to make a supportive push on the right side of the map at one point, or perhaps even attempted to send his Ostwind through the main road and sneaking into the back of the base and killing the Katyushas. The Katyushas were never too big on the threat. They did get 28 kills, or 30 kills in the end in total, but they were not enough to turn the tide. Now, sending an Ostwind on a suicide mission to take out the Katyushas may seem like a risky move, but if you can manage it, then it will be worth it in the end. So that's pretty much it for this cast. It was definitely enjoyable. I want to thank Down PT for sending me the replay. I want to thank you all for watching. I hope you learned something from the cast. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you soon.